the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by Donorbox.
I was driving to pick my daughter up from an after-school practice last week when my phone rang. I recognized the name of a nonprofit I support on the caller ID, and I used my hands-free option to answer. I was surprised and delighted when it was a member of their development team just calling to say thanks. They noticed I just started giving monthly, and they simply wanted to say thank you. Very authentically, I might add. In less than the time it took me to travel across town, this nonprofit inched up my list of favorites. It sounds so simple. Could it really be that easy? Yeah, I really think it can. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cara, fundraising coach at Donorbox. We're here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. I see a lot of nonprofits focus so much on soliciting donations that they forget the importance of expressing gratitude to their donors. But here's the thing. Donors are human beings with feelings and emotions just like the rest of us. When they receive a heartfelt thank you from the organization they've supported, it can make all the difference in the world. And today I'm joined by Jena Lynch, nonprofit advocate here at Donorbox. We recently got on the topic of how a simple, genuine thank you makes a difference. Jena has some experience with hosting a Thank-a-Thon, and I wanted to glean some insights from her. They just might make your next fundraising campaign a little easier too. So Jena, welcome as always. Good to see you. And for our listeners who might be unfamiliar, can you explain a little bit about what exactly is a Thank-a-Thon?
Hey, Cara. Thank you. Yeah, you bet. So a Thank-a-Thon is a campaign where nonprofits reach out to their donors to express gratitude and build those relationships. It's an opportunity to show appreciation to your donors and to let them know that their contributions are making a real difference in your organization's mission. So some nonprofits may hold Thank-a-Thon events, make it a whole day event, while others may just send emails. But traditional Thank-a-Thons are phone campaigns, like the phone call that you got. And what makes a Thank-a-Thon different from other phone campaigns is that nonprofits are not asking for money. They're not asking for money. They are just expressing their gratitude. But that doesn't mean that organizations won't benefit from it.
Thank you. Thanks for breaking that down a little bit for us, Jena. You know, it's about creating that personal connection with your donors. And let me tell you, it really works. It shows your donors that you don't just see them as a source of income, but as partners in achieving your nonprofit's mission. And when donors feel like they are truly valued and appreciated, they are more likely to continue supporting your organization, right?
Words to live by. Yes, absolutely. In fact, a nonprofit that I worked with a while back hosted a Thank-a-Thon for the first time after a particularly successful fundraising campaign. And my job was to recruit our volunteers to call their donors just to say thank you and express how much their support meant and where their dollars went and the impact. And one donor on a call, I remember this so well. One donor was so moved by the call that they actually ended up increasing their donation amount substantially for the next campaign. So just a simple thank you and relaying that impact made a huge difference for that organization in the future. And it was awesome.
Thank you turned into revenue, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. I took part in a Thank-a-Thon actually as a college student, and it was really great to hear someone's voice change from hesitant when they answered to very friendly when they realized why you were calling. And anymore, most calls go to voicemail, and it makes it really easy for a thank you call. And that's a really big treat for the recipient to find a note of gratitude in their voicemail box. And that's just one of the many benefits of holding a Thank-a-Thon, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are so many benefits. For example, hosting a Thank-a-Thon can actually help with increasing that donor retention and even regaining lapsed donors. Because again, when donors feel like they're a part of a community that shares their values and goals and appreciates them, they're more likely to stick around and continue supporting your nonprofit over long term. You and I talk about this all the time, and Thank-a-Thons really accomplish this. In fact, the same organization that I worked with kind of struggled with donor retention and re-engaging their lapsed donors. And I remember they tried everything from fancy fundraising events to really flashy campaigns, but those methods didn't really work. Then, since they had seen since such a positive response from that Thank-a-Thon that they um, did earlier for that successful campaign, they decided to pull their Bunt reports and try a Thank-a-Thon for that segment, that specific segment of their donor base too. And they ultimately increased their engagement and retention rates for that year, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. I know several organizations did that in November before they started their year-end fundraising campaign, and it really worked well this last year. And going along with that, doing all this can really help your nonprofit stand out from the crowd. We were talking about building community, and now I think it helps you stand out from the crowd. In today's world, donors have so many options when it comes to where they can give their money. We know that donors are supporting fewer organizations right now, and you can really stand out by showing some gratitude and personal attention. And the best part is that hosting a Thank-a-Thon doesn't have to be as complicated as you might think. So now we know why hosting a Thank-a-Thon is important. So let's dive into the fun stuff. Jena, can you help us kick us off with some of the steps involved in planning a successful Thank-a-Thon?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it doesn't have to be complicated. I think that some organizations can be intimidated, but you can do it in your own way, in a way that works for you. But first things first, you want to make sure that you have that good plan in place, right? So start by deciding how you want to reach out to your donors. You can send emails, create videos, whether that's on a fancy camera or your phone camera, or my personal favorite, make phone calls. And there's just something so special about hearing a genuine human voice on the other end of a line expressing gratitude.
I completely agree. I think making the phone call is the absolute best method, but it really can depend on your capacity and level of support that you have around you, what your team looks like. And that simple, personalized smartphone video is also really easy to create and distribute and can also be very impactful. I'd also like to jump in and say that I think the next step here is realizing that it's definitely not a job for one person. You need really everyone on board, including your staff, your volunteers, your board members. And when it comes to making the call, you really want people with a nice, strong phone presence who know the organization well. And board members are a fantastic option for this. They really, right? Yeah. And they can speak passionately about the organization and the impact it makes because they see it firsthand and they hear of the stories of all the good that's going on every month at the board meeting. So I'd recommend creating and sharing 2 scripts, one if someone answers and one if the call goes to voicemail, and that helps build some confidence around making those phone calls too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's easy enough. It helps break through any objections of not knowing what to say, right? Because your board and your volunteers might be a little intimidated by it as well. But if you provide these scripts, it can really help them feel confident and they know exactly how they're going to approach the phone call. And then I'd actually recommend creating a few must-have tools for your caller. So again, your volunteers, your board, whoever that may be. So first, a list of donors and their contact information, right? It's a good idea to provide any big details that might be helpful to your callers, like whether they've given year over year for a number of X years, or if they just made their very first gift, or like you, if you just started a monthly giving program. And that's helpful information to have for sure. That way you can personalize your message to each person that you're calling. And ideally, your executive director or your development staff will put together this information, right? And then it might be a good idea to have a few FAQs lined up for your callers as well. So be sure to provide your contact information or whoever's name your volunteers can share if the recipient has more questions or needs some specific information, right? So you want to equip them with the right person to refer people to. And then my last tip is to carve out time to do this. Carve out time to do this. If it's just one more thing on your daily to-do list, it often gets shuffled to the next day and then the next week until it doesn't happen, right?
Right.
Everyone decides to make calls on a specific day during a particular block of time. It feels like a true Thank-a-Thon event, which is really fun and motivating. And it's just make sure that it happens, right?
Yeah, and it like any event, it's important to be sure to celebrate your team and all those that come together to make that Thank-a-Thon come to life so you can express your gratitude to your callers, celebrate them with a little coffee gift card or a thank you note or even just a special treat at your next meeting. And, the time that anyone contributes to a successful Thank-a-Thon is truly a gift. It's a gift of time. Everyone is busy, and the time that they set aside for that can really help the organization. You need to treat it like a financial gift too.
Yeah, absolutely. Celebrate for
hmm
sure. Create that culture of gratitude from the inside out. That's so important. Thankathons are such a simple way to have a big impact. So, again, put some time on your schedule in the next week to say thank you to your donors, or better yet, you can do it right now. By the way, Donorbox has a great blog post on Thankathons, and we'll link that in today's show notes. There are always really great tips, tricks, and tactics in the Donorbox blog, so be sure to spend some extra time exploring while you're in there.
The Donorbox blog is a great use of time. And speaking of time, thank you for choosing to spend time with the Nonprofit Podcast. We try to be respectful of your time each week with short but hopefully impactful episodes to give you confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Be sure to click the download button on your podcast player, then leave the Nonprofit Podcast a review or give it a thumbs up if you're listening to the Nonprofit Podcast on YouTube. Your review is really a great way to help others find us. You're here to help others. We're here to help you. So until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is Donorbox, helping you help others.